last 2 weeks I said this and you people were in my DM saying all sorts of things. You see this our montage song here, if we put it on Apple Play Store, we'll be sold out. It's a beautiful Saturday morning right here in Accra. You're welcome to Living Well. My name is Ethel Poplampo. Today we'll be having an interesting conversation as always. And I always say this every Saturday morning. If you want to go out, don't worry. My producers and I are very kind. And so we are live on Facebook at Metro TV Ghana and also on Twitter at Metro TV GH. So if you want to go out, you can carry us along. And don't forget to send your questions on our social media platform. My name is Ethel Poplampo. We'll be right back. Right, welcome back. We didn't keep too long, so I guess you didn't miss me. Today we are going to talk about mental health. Since the inception of this show, we've had topics related to mental health. We've spoken about depression and other topics. So if you missed those topics, go to Metro TV's YouTube page. You can find all episodes of Living Well there, and then you can catch up with that. But I don't think there's a way we can totally absorb the topic of mental health. And so today we are going to talk about mental health with a special focus on the youth. And that is why I'm so happy that my guests are young people that we are going to be talking. Let's take their profile.
Pt.2 is a graduate of the University of Ghana Medical School class of 2022. He holds a Master of Public Health from the Catholic University. He is the founder and executive director of Sumujo Mental Health Foundation, where they focus on mental health promotion, policy advocacy, and improving access to care. His major interest is in leveraging technology to improve health outcomes at scale. He enjoys playing rock music on guitar and practicing mindfulness-guided meditation. Dr. Pt.2 consults for some international health organizations and local ones too. Dr. Alberta Owusu Anson is a graduating member of the University of Ghana Medical School class of 2022. In school, she served as the General Secretary for the UGMS Debate Society, where she took a particular interest in speaking on mental health issues after participating in an annual inter-university psychiatry debate. She has been a speaker on some youth platforms, talking on mental health challenges among the youth and ways to cope with them. She's currently doing her first year of housemanship with the obstetrics and gynecology department at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. She has a keen interest in health advocacy and health policy implementation. She loves listening to good music.
We are so lucky to have the CEO of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Pt.2, who will be joining us. Let's take his profile.
Pt.2 is a healthcare practitioner specializing as a psychiatrist in the Greater Accra region of Ghana. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Mental Health Authority. He is currently the Chief Psychiatrist and immediate past Medical Director of the Accra Psychiatric Hospital. Dr. Pt.2 has authored and co-authored a number of publications on mental health, including a quantitative analysis of human rights-related attitude changes towards people with mental health conditions and psychosocial, intellectual, or cognitive disabilities following completion of the World Health Organization's Quality Rights E-training in Ghana. He is passionate about educating the general public on the need to take care of their mental health in order to be more productive. It is the desire of Dr. Pt.2 that policymakers will enforce policies that enable an improved and holistic healthcare system in the country, which is accessible and affordable for all.
Dr. Pt.2, the immediate past CEO of the Mental Health Authority. We had a discussion with him during the week. Let's take part of that discussion shortly.
health and mental illness are two different things. Mental health is a normal situation, which is desirable. Mental illness is an abnormal condition, the illness situation. So we talk about mental health when we say that you are in a state of mind in which you are capable of coping with the daily stresses of life, daily activities of living, and you see meaning in life, and you are able to be productive to yourself and to contribute to the society, then you have the normal state of mental health, which is, as I said, desirable. On the other hand, when you have mental illness, it means you are in a state of mind in which there is a significant disturbance in your ability to be productive to yourself, to be able to cope with the daily stress of life, and to contribute to society and to see meaning in life. And this disturbance may manifest in various ways, including disturbances in your perception, the way you perceive external reality. You may hear voices which are not there, or see strange things which others are not seeing, or you may go through emotional abyss you cannot contain, stresses that come your way. It may show up in disturbance in your behavior. You may scream, you may shout, you may even undress. Those are abnormal disturbances in your state of mental health, and this will require treatment. So we make a distinction between mental health and mental illness. Now, mental illness has various, there are various types. If you talk about malaria, malaria is one phenomenon. Some mosquito has bitten you and given you some parasites and caused some condition in you, we call malaria. If you have pneumonia, again, we know some bacteria is causing that. But mental illness is not one entity. Over 300 conditions are all mental illnesses. So we often tend to think that, oh, somebody has a mental illness and the same entity as the other person has a mental illness, or the third person has a mental illness. They are different entities. So that is the nature of mental illness. We know what health is. Without health, we will not even be able to produce wealth. So we say health is wealth.
Right.
Without health, you cannot produce wealth for yourself because you can't be productive.
Right.
Now, health, by the definition of health, contains mental health. Right. Health is a state of well-being, psychological, social, and physical well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity.
Right.
So you must be completely well, both physically, emotionally, and mentally or psychologically. So if you don't have psychological well-being, then you can't even be productive to yourself. You don't have total health, you can't be productive to yourself. You get up in the morning, you can't go to your work because you don't have mental health. Or your relationship between you and your colleagues is just wrong because you don't have mental health.
Right.
You cannot live in the society the way you should, and you cannot be productive to yourself.
Right.
You can contribute meaningfully to the society. So without mental health, you are totally lost.
Right.
And you can't even be productive. You can't generate wealth. So you may be alive, all right, but if you are mentally unwell, eventually, then it's like a vegetable because you are just not well and you are not able to cope with your daily affairs. So it is very important that we have mental health. Indeed, at individual level, if you don't have mental health, the chances are that you can be up in the 2000s and early 2010 thereabouts. I would have rated as 2/10. In other words, if 10 is excellent and 0 is very poor, and we're just about 2/10, which was bad in terms of our mental health care.
Right, thank you for staying back here in the studio. I still have my guests, beautiful young people, here to help me dissect the mental health topic. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. Let me start from you, Alberta, because I love you, and I'm openly biased towards women. Dr. Kwesi has said enough, But then if there's a lot of things we don't know about mental health, but then if there's one thing that I am sure of that we know, is the misconception thrown out there. Until recently, when you hear about mental health, the first thing that comes to mind is madness. Dr. Kwesi has said his own, but from where you sit as a young person, how do you say it for us to understand what is mental health?
So mental health is basically the state of mind of a person at a particular point in time, right? So and as he said, he was trying to contrast mental health with mental illness. And you realize that mental health is something that is normal. Like everyone is supposed to be in a state of good health at every point in time. But if you have a mental illness, that is when you have things like depression, anxiety, and people using substance and stuff. So it's not really a problem in itself. Mental health is what we are supposed to have, but it's when you have a mental illness, and that's what makes it a problem. Now, the misconception where you say someone has a mental illness, they are mad, right? That term alone makes it degrading. So it doesn't make people speak up when they have a problem that they want to share. They feel like people will think I'm mad and I'm not going to talk about my mental health.
Yeah, let me come to you.
Yeah.
I've had my own share of mental health issues, but then I just want to find out, from where you sit as the expert, will there be a time that an individual can say, okay, I don't have any mental health issues, I'm okay, I'm fine, everything is okay?
Yes, so I think, listening to Prof. Kwesi say, he mentioned something, impairment of the individual's everyday activities. Fair enough, your mental health is good, as my friend here, Dr. Alberta, mentioned, but does it impair with your everyday activities? That's you're thinking too much, or you're worrying about your work or your school, impair with your ability to relate with your friends. So that's where it comes in as the mental health negatively affected, your mental health being negatively affected when it interferes with your everyday activities. So yes, once you are, of course, we'll talk about coping skills and coping strategies later, but once you are taking very good care of your mental health, then you can see that you have sound mental health.
Right. Let me still stay with you. How do we get the misconceptions and the stereotypes attached to mental health? How do we get it away? Because as much as I'll give it to the mental health professionals and the health experts, information has come through to the people over the years, but then it looks like there's a lot more to be done. How do we break that stereotype? Because I was having a conversation with a neighbor the other day about how everybody needs therapy and everybody has to speak to a psychiatrist. And his first reaction was, psychiatrist, Adema Bodam. And it goes to tell you how people think about who a psychiatrist is and who sees a therapist. So how do we break away from that stereotype?
Well, that's a very good question, Ethel. So that's one of the reasons we started Zomujo Mental Health Foundation. Realized that because of the stigma surrounding mental health, people aren't accessing care, even if or when there is care. So by education and awareness, and we at Zomujo, for example, as a grassroots organization, last month, that is the month of May, was Mental Health Awareness Month. We embarked on a number of mental health outreaches across schools in the Kolegono, Mamprobi, Sempe, and the Greater Accra region as a whole, where we went to talk about mental health. And with just what you said, we had some of the students come up. You'd ask the students, what do you think mental health is? And they come up and say, Abodam, it's madness. And so even at the senior high school level and JHS level, we have this misconception of what mental health is. And then we did a survey amongst the students, and would you want to speak to someone? When you have issues, who would you talk to? And we realized that some of these students, number one, didn't even know what mental health is, are shy or afraid to talk about it, don't want to be associated with going there.
And I feel like people not accessing care even when it's available, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's not because they don't want to access
exactly.
it, but they don't even know
where.
when you should see an expert. Or so that takes me to my next question. When do you have to see a professional, Alberta? When do you have to see a professional? When is it okay to say, okay, there's something wrong with me? Because our society have made it in such a way that we have shifted a lot of things to the background, to the extent that even when you say, I'm depressed, people think it's a joke. So at what point do you seek for help?
Okay. So if we want to contrast mental illness with physical illness, you realize that, say you have a headache, you quickly come to the hospital because like you can't live with the pain, or your tummy is hurting, you can't live with it. But people think it's okay, I'm sad, I'm depressed, let me live with it. But no, depression or anxiety is something that you have to seek help for so that you be treated. So depending on the timing, right, sometimes it lasts for a short while and those things are just mood changes. But it can also last for a long time. So like for 2 weeks, you have a persistent change in attitude, you are feeling low. It's okay to seek help as early as possible.
2 weeks?
Yes, for something like depression, 2 weeks, you are in a state of low mood. You realize that things that you were finding pleasurable previously are no longer enjoyable to you. Or say someone can be depressed and they win an award and they are not even happy. Anyone in their right state of mind would be happy when they have a win. But if you are in a depressed state, you can have a major win and you still be down about it. That is when you realize that no, you have to seek help, because this is not something that is normal at all.
Yeah.
We are talking about mental health in general and then mental illness. We've established right from the beginning that mental health is different from mental illness, from Professor Kwesi and also you guys. But then let's just jam it up as we go. At therapy, let's talk about seeing a psychologist. When do you see a psychologist? Because from what I've heard from all these Hollywood stars, there's this lady called Jeannie Mai. She saw a therapist to offload some of the traumas from her childhood. What if I don't have trauma? Do I still need to see a psychologist?
Okay, so that's a good one. So there's talk therapy, right? So with talk therapy, it's been established that according to research, talking to usually individuals who, like psychologists, psychotherapists, sometimes even responsible adults in society who empathize and are non-judgmental about it, it also helps, right? So in the more developed countries, like you mentioned, in the USA, people go to see the psychologist to vent out. Sometimes there's this common saying that a problem shared is half solved. Sometimes just being able to vent out, have someone listen to you alone in itself, has a therapeutic effect to it. So, but in our part of the world, we all try to shove it all in. If you're a guy, hey, men, you are supposed to be hard. This is not a major thing. But it wells up and it eats us up. So yes, once you realize that it's interfering with your everyday activity, your relation with your peers, at work, anything you are doing, you know that, hey, I think I have to see someone. Let me quickly add that even at Zomujo too, we've started a peer counseling approach too. So not everybody gets to, in our part of the world, given the low psychologist to, patient ratio, not everybody gets to see the psychologist. But we said, we've introduced the peer counseling approach, saying that you can speak to a peer counselor. So these peer counselors are trained to be non-judgmental. Some of these have lived experiences. Lived experience is expertise. Combining that lived experience with professional rigorous training, they are trained to be able to listen and to be able to offer help. Say, this is where I think you should go. I think you should talk to somebody about it. I can listen to you, I'm there. So by establishing this peer counsel, we've seen that people are now easing to the idea of therapy and seeing a psychologist.
We'll come back to the issue of seeing a psychologist and therapist, because I have issues.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation with a friend that therapy is hard for some of us.
Yeah.
Because we don't talk about our problems. I'd rather just sit back and just, but then when you go to therapy, it's like stripping yourself down and then building yourself up. So it is tough for some of us who will rather make jokes to cover up our stories, just sitting in front of a random person you don't know from Adam and telling your whole story. So we'll come back to that and see how we can get rid of that barrier. But then we went on the streets to talk to some people to see what they know about mental health. So let's take the Vox Pop. We'll be back.
So for mental health, it's a very serious case in this our country, Ghana. But people don't regard it as serious as it should be. Because we may have some people who may be depressed and they might isolate themselves from their peers on one or two issues. And I think when we get some issues like that, or we see some people who subsequently isolate themselves from their peers, we should get in touch with them and find out what actually is wrong with them, because it is through these small petty things that might be a case or that will lead to serious mental health, that might even lead them on the streets or committing suicide or committing any other thing. So I think we should be much aware and then send much emphasis on that to help others who are going through such problems.
The man nipa to me bought down anyway and say ebia nipa no I frustrated. I dream bebre then egu so I know be a major dia. We say adwendwen sa no ade adwen na clash na imi no be boom man ade about them because adwen the neutral and positive it is enemy no be boom dia dam no be bo nti anya wi nkwa na manipa about them nyama bebre anya bibia na edi sika manipa ebia wo kasa kra betimi manipa na nya kra hye aha nti anya bibia na sika ba san krofo na o se ebe omo na etimi ni omo ya den etwetwe adwenkyere de was so ye wo momo bia no yetime de momo eba no se be.
I think we need to engage ourselves more, trying to like articulate with people, trying to like advise people much more about what mental health is. Mental health is not just about it's not something mere or something. We have to educate people more on that. It could be a depression. It could be like, and it could lead to mental trauma and a whole kind of stuff. So I think the government and we, the people around, need to engage people more on it.
Mental health is something that we need to take it seriously. Like when somebody is being affected with this whole thing, we should show love. You know what I mean? It's like the whole thing is the Bible says that we should love one another. So if your sister or your brother is experiencing this kind of thing, you need not to isolate yourself. So show them love, bring them closer to you. They are not to harm us. At least it's something that has happened to you. It could happen to you, it could happen to me. So if you have been affected, let society embrace them, at least advise them, show them love. By showing love, at least I think they also feel like they also belong to us. Like it's like we are trying to stigmatize. The whole thing end up developing and they get to a worse situation whereby we cannot control it. So I think it's my advice to the whole world or the whole community is that when somebody is affected, we should bring the person closer, because it could happen to you and it could happen to us. Thank you very much.
Right, we are back. Dr.
Tita.
Let's continue. The second person who spoke about mental health, you can see as much as his contribution was meaningful, he associated mental health to madness.
Yeah.
In my interview with Dr. Kwesi, he mentioned that there are about 300 triggers to mental illness. Depression, we've spoken about depression. Dr. Alberta has mentioned anxiety. Yeah. What are some other triggers? So
again, we are looking at it with a focus on the youth. So I'd like to come at the very ground level and looking at substance abuse and the things that we take in even as youth. Again, as part of our mental health outreach in May, we asked some of the students, and even kids in primary 4, primary 5 knew some of these things. So the tramadol, Valium, alcohol, all these things that are abused, all these substances that are abused are things that can really affect mental health. So And then we can also look at the stresses. Stress, and I like that even for lay people, they're able to mention things like too much stress, or worrisome, anxious, not offloading, not talking to somebody about it. And I like that gentleman who said, it's not really about the money, but be finding somebody to be able to just speak to and vent out. And that's what Prof. Akwasi even established during his talk.
Yeah, Alberta. Yeah, I'd like to hear, what are some other triggers apart from, he's mentioned substance abuse and,
Yes.
So, I mean, the triggers, I feel like we can, I mean, as youth, we look at 3 main things that would affect us. You see, you can have stress from home, stress from schoolwork, and stress from the workplace, because looking at our age group, that is where we find ourselves at home, in school, and then at the workplace. So at home, you would have people coming from homes where maybe their parents are not supportive, or they have gone through some form of abuse. It could be emotional abuse, it could be sexual abuse, or even physical abuse. So these people already coming from home, they are not able to open up to people easily because they have this low self-esteem that they've built up from home. So that alone in itself is one trigger to developing a mental illness. And then looking at it from the educational standpoint, from school, you have people not able to open up in class because they feel they'll be laughed at. Or there are people who may not be seen as so bright in class, but then they have other qualities that are overlooked. And because the standard in the class is maybe we are looking at the person who is part of the top 5, and that person would always go back into their shell, and the more they go through these things, they begin to have some form of mental illness. Then you also have the workplace. So the youth, sometimes we are moving from school, we are transitioning right into the workplace. No one really tells you what to expect when you start working. So you start working and it's like, maybe you are having some issues at work, you don't know who to talk to, you don't want to be a snitch, you don't want to go and say something about your boss somewhere, and it's like no one really prepares you for such instances. And I feel that alone can be a major trigger to one's mental health and cause some mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, which are like the most common things amongst the youth these days.
Another one. Yes, so she's rightly said that. And even as these days, social media, right, we don't really look at it in this. There's so much going on in the social media world such that now people are creating some expectations of themselves. They watch their friends living a certain lifestyle, which sometimes isn't so, and then are intimidated by that sometimes, and want to also try and live that kind of a lifestyle, or feel like, I'm not so doing well, I'm also not. So that whole feeling of you not being able to match up to that can also, it affects, commonly these days, we have social media persons who are getting all the depression and anxiety from just that. So now I know lots of people use social media, but now they don't even want to post again. They don't even want to open, say, Instagram.
And I'm guilty. I would rather watch people post their pictures and things rather than posting myself.
Exactly.
I post like once a year. I prefer it being on my story and then in 24 hours it's gone rather than. But then on an interesting note, this Nigerian musician, Ladi, sang a song that adulthood is a scam. Adulthood not scam. Can adulthood be a trigger to mental health? Illness?
I think the preparation, right? Sometimes you have some expectations of adulthood and you get there and it's like, okay, this is not really what I thought it would be. Yes, because from, you feel like, oh, when I get there, I'm going to have my own money, I'm having my own car, I can take some decisions for myself.
And you know, sometimes you sit down and you think about the plans you made for yourself when you were in senior high school, and then you were like, by 25, I have my own car, I have my own house and all that. So is that to say that adulthood necessarily is not a trigger to mental illness, but then
the events
that
exactly.
Anxiety has been something that we've spoken about a lot. It's a major trigger. We've extensively dealt with depression on the show, but then we've not spoken about anxiety into detail. Today's show is not about anxiety. We are just using the whole topic. We are just taking the whole topic. But Alberta, tell me, what is anxiety? What should I experience to know that this is anxiety and I have to see a professional?
Okay, so with anxiety, you would have excessive worry. And that excessive worry can actually impair your daily activities. So it's okay to feel nervous at times, but then when you are always worried about something, sometimes these things are even irrational fears. That it's not even something you are supposed to be worried about, but then you are just excessively worried about it. And once it affects your daily living, it becomes an anxiety disorder in that it is affecting your day-to-day life. So we can say, okay, this person is anxious and it's not normal anymore, and they have to actually seek help.
This thing with anxiety, personally, I don't know where to put it, because I have taken a personal decision not to worry about things that I cannot change. But then it comes off like you are don't care, or I cannot come and kill myself vibe. So where do we draw the line between staying chilled and worrying about things, Dr. Tuzi?
So yes, I think it's about striking the balance. So lately there's this concept about stoicism, and then I've seen that quote, Marcus Aurelius, about being able to control the things you can and then leaving the things you can't. Good. But also not to also take on an indifferent approach to things. Even we are talking mental health, and you, Ethel, how you relate with your peers here at work. Imagine a friend wants to open up to you, a friend believes in you so much and wants to confide in you, and you seem not interested in whatever he or she wants to say. There's that look of things. So being able to strike the balance between not letting the worries of everyday life get you so worked out and shelved in, versus being open enough to balance it and help others. So it's about striking that balance.
Okay, we'll go back to Dr. Kwesi's interview that we had during the weekend. And he made some interesting points about the youth and mental health. Let's take that voice.
When you talk about mental health, generally, in fact, the youth are largely affected. We know that even for adults who have mental health problems, about 75% of them started in their teens, up to the age of about 14 years. That is where mental health conditions started. And often it might not be diagnosed, so they live with it, or people see and they say they will outgrow it, and they don't outgrow it, they live with it. So it becomes well established into their late teens and their 20s and 30s, whatnot. So the youth need to understand mental health conditions are actually largely preventable. So if they understand these issues, then they can prevent it largely before there's an onset of the illness. What they can do to prevent it, for instance, stay away from hard drugs. Cannabis, marijuana, that's marijuana or cannabis, and pethidine, the tramol, and those other drugs, cocaine, heroin. They should stay away from that, because those drugs largely contribute to mental conditions, mental health conditions. So by staying away from that, they are preventing mental illness to a large extent. Alcohol, tobacco, all these are precursors towards mental illness. So by staying away from them, they are preventing mental illness. Gambling these days, now gambling and game betting, it is a major cause of mental health challenges. Every now and then I get calls, people wanting to take their lives, suicide, because they are addicted to gambling. They are addicted to game betting.
Right.
So once you engage in this condition, game betting, you get so addicted, and a time comes that all your money goes into it, and without it, you can't survive. So you owe so much, and what you decide then is to take your life.
Right.
So they should stay away from betting. You may take it and win, but that becomes what we will call helper killer. It becomes seductive to seduce you into more gambling, and eventually you find yourself in this difficulty. So let them take steps to stay away from this. And then, in spite of all this, some conditions may set in, even with the best of care. And then what it means is that as quickly as you recognize there is an issue, a change in your manner, change in your behavior, change in your sleep pattern, change in your appetite pattern,
right,
then quickly recognize that there could be something amiss and I need to report. So early report will lead to early identification, and then you will be prevented from having fully established mental health condition.
That was an interesting submission from Professor Kwesi. I don't know how certain people are going to feel about his remarks, but here at Metro TV, we call them the members of the Winners Chapel, the people who bet. He mentioned the effect betting and gambling can have on the mental health of youth. You were making a submission on that. I'd like to hear that.
Yes, so betting, gambling, just as if you take alcohol, there's drink responsibly. And even with betting, with the betting companies, there's the bet responsibly, right? In a sense, I wouldn't want to speak on absolutes, whether it's bad or not. But is a person being responsible? Say even with alcohol, using that same analogy, right? Is the person drinking responsibly? Same with the betting instance. So now people get to, when the bet, there's a whole build up to it. Today, Man City will be playing.
You bet.
No text found at that location.
No. Do you bet?
Personally, I don't.
Because you speak from an expert view, right? So I really want to, because the Winners Chapel will be cheering you all right now. Tell them. But you are making an interesting point.
So there's a Man City, Inter Milan, right? They are the odds. I want to stack my money against a team. Personally, I'll go for Man City. Let's say into the game, and then we are leading, and just at the tick of time when the game is about to over, there's a change of events. And sometimes because we think we are too sure, we try to dump in heavy amounts. It goes sideways, and then people end up losing their savings. People end up losing their life's worth investments. And these things, because it's the addiction, again with alcohol and even smoking, the addiction factor. So now the person comes into contact with any amount of money and quickly wants to bet. Because you know what, maybe I placed a bet a few days ago, and then with say 2 Ghana cedis, I won say 50, 100. So if I have 200 cedis, I could win say 1,000, 2,000, 10,000.
You are putting 200 Ghana.
People have put 200 cedis and won. People have put even 10 Ghana cedis and won huge sums. People have put in, it's range. Some people bet as much as 10,000, 5-figure Ghana cedis.
Yeah.
Good.
So my question is, you've made it known that it's the betting or doing these things responsibly that will either make it affect your mental health or not. But why do you put yourself in that position of getting triggered? That is my question. Why do you put yourself in that position?
Okay, what do you?
How better?
Yes. So for me, I think because you cannot really draw the line. At what point do you realize that you are becoming addicted to the betting? So for me, I'll say don't even go in at all, right? Because it's like you start off, you put in, I know people who bet, right? You put in 2 cedis and then you earn some money. So you feel, okay, let me keep on doing it. And now you get to a point and you make a huge loss, and you are now even borrowing from friends to go and bet. Like, you never know at what point, like, too much is too much. When you're addicted to something, you can keep on going and going, and it would affect you, affect not just your mental health, but then it would also affect that of the people around you, because people are concerned about you and are worried about you too, and all you want to do is bet. So for me, I would say because you can't draw the line, just don't go into it in the first place.
Do you want to rebut what Alberta is saying?
No, not a rebuttal. I mean, what she's saying is makes perfect. It's true. But I also like to add that let's not limit the betting. Fine, we've made a pace about it with the football and the gaming betting. But even our lives generally are full of bets that we often overlook. Sometimes some decisions we take, people take certain decisions and then don't weigh the risk and end up regretting. We take bets on people, on ourselves at certain ends, and sometimes things don't go as planned. All those ones are forms. So yes, although Prof was mentioning the betting on games, which is a very important point, and it's not advisable to do it, but for those who do, like drinking, don't, if you can, abstain, but if you can't, be responsible.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, you are still watching Living Well right here on Metro TV. Don't forget to go on our social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter. Drop your questions, drop your comments. I'll be reading them shortly. We'll be right back after this break.
Melody inspires young women when they hear that a woman flew solo in the 1960s. How would they respond if they also knew that she battled mental health issues all her life and yet managed to overcome awful self-doubt to respond to an ad to join the Air Force? Would they be inspired if they knew that despite a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, she flew planes and faced the male hierarchy of the military of the 60s with fortitude and flair?
The immediate past head of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Ghana, Professor Angelo Furiata, recounts the thriving days of her late mother, Melody, who unfortunately slammed into clinical depression at the peak of her career as the first female military pilot in sub-Saharan Africa in the 1960s. Her late mother's condition motivated her to put up this psychiatric block at the Pt.2 Teaching Hospital with the help of some donors. The facility will serve as a safe haven for persons with mental health conditions. Named after her late mother, the Melody includes lecture halls, consulting therapy, treatment, observation rooms, and other amenities. It serves both the University of Ghana and the Pt.2 Teaching Hospital.
One of the significant challenges we face is stigma attached to mental illnesses in our society. The stigma, both perceived and internalized, has resulted in the marginalization and isolation of individuals seeking help, as well as the healthcare professionals dedicated to their care. We firmly believe that this new structure will indirectly reduce the burden of stigma by creating an environment where patients and healthcare workers feel respected and supported.
Minister of Health, Kweku Agyeman disclosed that mental health services have now been decentralized to all district and regional hospitals in the country, making them more accessible to people who need them.
In general, Ghana has made significant progress in improving healthcare access and quality. Our healthcare access and quality index has increased from 41.6 in 2010 to 49.1 at the count in 2019. These improvements, coupled with various measures, have positively impacted our sector's performance.
At the commissioning of the facility, President Akufo-Addo noted that mental health remains on the government's priority list.
Stands as a tribute to the memory of Squadron Leader Melody Dankwa, a trailblazing woman who made history as the first female military pilot in sub-Saharan Africa in the 1960s. Her story serves as an inspiration not only to those living with mental illness, but also to those who persevere, thrive, and achieve their fullest potential in life. Today we celebrate the indomitable spirit of individuals who face mental health challenges and find the strength, nonetheless, to lead fulfilling lives.
He added that the Accra Psychiatric Hospital will be reconstructed into a modern teaching hospital for psychiatry.
We've also undertaken a review of the uses and purposes of our oldest psychiatric hospital, the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, and have agreed to rebuild the hospital to serve as a modern teaching hospital for psychiatry. It will be the first time since the 1970s the government would have added to the infrastructure in mental health. The Melody, as this building is to be called, just by the way it looks and by virtue of where it is situated, will decrease stigma towards patients and professionals who practice.
The president said his government will continue to improve the country's health infrastructure to serve the growing population.
As I mentioned earlier at the onset of the show, I have made it known that we've made improvements when it comes to the treatment of mental health, and the awareness has gone very well. And it gladdens my heart to see that infrastructures are being put in place to make sure that the treatment of mental health is going on well. So Alberta, let me come to you. Looking at where we are coming from and where we are now, what is your general overview of the fight against mental health?
Okay. So, I mean, I think we are doing well, but it's never enough. Yes, previously we had 3 main psychiatric hospitals, the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, Ankafo, and then Pantine Hospital. And now we have this facility at Kolebu that has been built. And I feel like it's going to improve mental health treatment across the country. But more has to be done. We have to come up with more places outside Accra as well. And there's also going on social media, the aspects where we are including technology. So not just going to the facility in person, but then using the phone to access treatment. And I think that is what Zomujo is doing as well.
Dr. Suze.
So yes, at Zomujo, improving access to care is one of the reasons we also started that. Earlier this year, we launched our AI-powered app platform to be able to provide free, personalized, and confidential mental health services. So it was just on the principle that, say you, Ethel, you want to discuss something mental health, or you are being down, you've been down for a while, you want to talk about anything, you could just come to the platform and then answer some few questions, matches you to a peer counselor who is trained, has the lived expertise, and then it takes you to a private chat room, and it's all anonymous. After that, the chat is deleted. These are some of the things that we did about improving access to care. So this facility, of course, we know it's going to really, really help. One thing I like about it is that if you look at it, the architecture, it has a welcoming environment. It's not your typical, hospital. The ones we have, exactly. So somebody can easily walk in, feel at home, and then just vent out.
I'll go shortly to take Dr. and Professor Kwesi's view on the care we are giving right now to the issue of mental health and mental illness. But before we take that, both of you, over 10, how will you rate the mental health fight now? Let me start from Alberta, over 10.
I'd say 6.
6, okay, that's good.
The whole Professor Kwesi rated it 5, right? So let's not be guided. Let me stick to 5.
Okay then. So let's go take Professor Kwesi's view on the care that the infrastructures that are being put in place for the fight against mental health and mental illness.
In the 2000s and early 2010 thereabouts, I would have rated as 2 over 10. In other words, if 10 is excellent and 0 is very poor, and we're just about 2 over 10, which was bad in terms of our mental health care. And that was because we had very few psychiatrists, maybe just about 4, 5, 6, 10, maximum 10 psychiatrists in the whole country. That time population was about 21 or 25 million. So that was really horrible.
Wow.
If you went to the psychiatric hospital, you would even not get medication. If you got it, was the older types of medication that would make you like zombie, that would make you be drooling saliva, that would take away your independence. And you might even not get it at all.
Right.
So that was the kind of situation. Psychiatric nurses, they were few. If you talk about mental health care, you're only talking about Accra Psychiatric Hospital, Ankafo, and Pantan. Now, after 2022, thereabouts, 2020, thereabouts, when I said it was 5 over 10, it meant that we had improved remarkably, but still not good enough. We had improved remarkably in the sense that after that time, we had about 40 psychiatrists from about 5. So there was a marked improvement.
Right.
Clinical psychologists, they were about 30, 40 as against just 2 or 3 in the public sector. So there was a marked improvement. Medications, you were getting medications every year. The government was able to procure for us some medications, not adequate, but at least some medications, as against previously when 7 good years we didn't have any medications.
Right.
So things were much better than it used to be some time back, but it was still not good enough. For instance, stigma was still high. If you have mental illness, it means you are stigmatized and to be discriminated against.
Right.
It was still high, and so we had not gone to where we wanted to be. So that's why I said 5 over 10. Now, 2023, what would I say? Maybe just about 6 over 10. Not much improvement over the 2021, but still much better than the 2 over 10.
Right.
So we realize that we are on course, but there's a lot more to do. Now, Ghana, for instance, we require not less than 150 to 200 psychiatrists for a population of 31 million.
Right.
And not less than 150 to 200 psychiatrists, but we are about 60, 64 now. So we are on course. And I'm sure that in the next 3 years, we'll be about 100 because we have a number of doctors in training. So they all come to that.
Right.
And then it will be exponential growth. And we are also growing in terms of psychiatric nurses. Now we talk about 4,000 to 5,000 psychiatric nurses all over the country.
Okay.
And that's very good, even though brain drain is beginning to hit us again. So things are generally improving. And now you may be aware the Agenda 101 government is going to build 1 psychiatric hospital in the north. It started already. It's going to build 1 psychiatric hospital in the middle belt.
Okay.
And to add to the 3 psychiatric hospitals we have. So
Right.
that will make it quite uniformly distributed. Now, all health facilities can take care of mental health care to some extent. All health facilities, including even chill zones. It's the health centers, polyclinics, district hospitals, regional hospitals, teaching hospitals. So it's generally not bad, but we want it to be even better improved than we have it. So generally, we are better off than we were some 10 years ago. And nationally, mental illness contributes to about 7% of our GDP loss.
Wow.
Our GDP, gross domestic product, that every year determines how well we are developing as a nation, how well we are economically growing. And now we are struggling with just about a 3-4%. And we know that if you have 8% per annum, you are well on course towards becoming a developed nation. And we are losing 7% every year as a result of mental health problems. That means without the 7% loss, you'll probably be running some 10, 12, 14%, which would be great.
Right.
So it is very important as an individual for us to have mental health, and as a society for our collectively for our mental health to be good.
All right, thank you for staying. Let me come back to you, Dr. Do you share the same sentiments with Professor Kwesi, or you beg to differ?
Oh, I share the same sentiments with Prof. Kwesi saying. Yes, mental health in Ghana, there's been, since the Mental Health Act 2 to 2012, there's been an improvement in the care. And then there have been deliberate attempts to train more psychiatrists and psychologists, as you rightly mentioned, which would eventually help improve access to care. My concern is always about, I come from the north, Denugu, Upper East region, and the psychiatric facilities we mentioned are all situated in the south, right? So going forward to the decentralization would also really help, so that you're able to reach persons up north.
Right. Alberta?
Yes, so I agree with what he said. It's always good to aim for more. So it's like we are doing a good thing, but there's still more to do. And the facilities, as he said, are based in the south, but let's take it to all other places in the country. But I think that we are still doing a good job, because even if you listen to the people who were interviewed on the street, some of them gave really good points, and you can see that the awareness is going on. People are listening, but it's left with the fact that are they going to apply what they are hearing, and that is what we need to be looking at now.
Right. It's getting to my favorite part of the show. If you have been watching the show right from the beginning, you know my favorite part of the show. Let's take the aerobic session. When we come back, we take my favorite part.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's change it over. Let's take it down slowly. Down slowly. Let's feel the vein. 1. And look forward. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold your weight. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Up, go. 1, go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more. Let's do it together. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do it together. 7, 2, 3, vector, 4, 5, 6, shoot, 7, go. Go. Ha, 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 ha. Shoot. Ha, 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 ha. I like this one. Go. 7, 8, 9, double. Go. Close your legs. And then open the other leg. Pull, and then move. Open your legs. I want to do it for you. You're not doing for me, please. Press off.
Fitness is life, and as a human being, you must make time to exercise so as to, avoid all of these complications with our health.
I'm busy. I barely get time to keep fit. So if there's something I can do once a month, I feel it's worth it.
Right. When we're discussing a topic on depression, Dr. Albert mentioned how exercise can help. But then with the way I take mental health issues serious, I don't think we can emphasize enough how exercising helps with your mental health and your general mental well-being. So Dr. Toots, how does exercising help with?
Yeah, so there have been studies to actually show that physical activities, that's exercise, improves mental health in that it decreases the risk of depression, anxiety, it boosts self-esteem and confidence, or even that you realize that, let's look at the converse, not exercising. And then later, as you mentioned, we'll talk about the eating disorders later, but not exercising to, now people have a certain obsession with body shape, weight, and all that, right? Once you are fit, I don't know, you've exercised before, right, Ethel? After a good day's exercise, you realize that you yourself...
You can take on the world.
Exactly, there's a relief. Personally, I do that just to ease my mind, just to clear my mind. People go to the gym, and that's why we encourage people to exercise every day. Sometimes after a hard day's work or after a stressful day's work, just go to the gym or exercise just to clear the mind, ease yourself, take a good shower, and get back in.
Right, Dr. Albert, let me come back to you. We're about to go to my favorite part ever. And Dr. Albert, you happen to know my favorite part. Tell me, how does the food we eat help with our mental health? Because when you find yourself, personally, when I'm in a bad mood, there are certain foods I call my comfort food, and I just chow them down. But then how does the same food help with making your mental health feel clear and clean?
Okay, so as the saying goes, that a healthy mind lives in a healthy body. So the food you eat actually is what is going to give you that healthy body. And you cannot have a healthy mind and you don't have the right body for the mind to function in. Taking in some foods, we think of it as comfort food, but then you realize that the more you take the comfort food, you feel like you are getting okay. But say that comfort food is making you fat, is making you grow large, and now you are getting depressed because you are becoming big.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it because you still want to take in the comfort food. So regulating what we eat at certain points in time can actually help us, can actually help with our mental health. Yes.
Right. That being said, let's go to Chef Freeman and see what he has for us today.
Welcome back to another episode of the Living Well Health Show here on Metro TV. My name is Darryl Freeman and I'm the executive chef here at Elisa Hotels Northridge in Accra. Today we're going to make a full protein smoothie, so let's get blending. So what ingredients do we need for this protein smoothie? One thing is peanut butter. Honey, a lot better than normal sugar. We've got some rolled oats, full of protein. We also have some Greek yogurt, again full of protein. And we've got some fresh bananas here. Now this smoothie is one of my daughter's favourite, Trinity, back in South Africa, and she loves this smoothie. And so she has this for breakfast most days, and so it boosts her up and it gives her full of energy for the day. So what we're going to do as well is we're going to decorate our smoothie glass just with a little bit of chocolate. Now you don't have to do it, but just it's a chef's thing to make it a little bit more fancy. So what we're going to do is dip the top in, and then we're going to let it dribble down the sides. And we're going to put that into the fridge. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start making this smoothie. First things we need to do is make sure we have our blender. So I've got my blender. I'm going to take off the lid. Okay, first we're going to add our Greek yogurt. We're going to add our oats. I'm going to leave some just for a little bit of garnish. We're going to add our peanut butter. We're going to add some of our lovely honey. Okay, and then we've got our bananas. Again, we don't need to nicely cut them. Roughly chop up our banana. Okay, put our lid on and let's get smoothing. Take our peanut butter smoothie mixture. Take some of our rolled oats, just sprinkle on top, a little bit around the edge for decoration. Okay, so this is our peanut butter and banana smoothie with the Greek yogurt, honey and the rolled oats. Have this in the morning, this will fill you up. As I said, it's a fantastic breakfast starter, and so give it a try.
Right, I'm definitely going to try that one at home because today's ingredients are like simple, basic ingredients that if you look into your fridge, you will have it. So try it, tag me on social media. Let's get the conversation going. Now, we are going to talk about policies that can be made to help facilitate the smooth fight when it comes to mental health and mental illness. Dr. Kwesi had some interesting views. Let's take his view. When we come back, we'll speak to our guests in the studio.
On the side of policymakers, the government and the ministry, they need to give proper attention in terms of offering support, financial support.
Right.
What we get every year is woefully inadequate for mental health services.
Right.
Some time back in Abuja, all ministers for health in West Africa met, and they decided that, maybe just about 20, 25 years ago,
Right.
they decided that all health budget, government must, all national budget, the whole nation, the national budget, government must devote 50% of the national budget to health.
Right.
And of the 15%, if you take the 50% as 100%, you must devote not less than 6% of it to mental health.
Okay.
What has happened? The 15% national budget going to health, the best that any country has ever done probably is about 13%. Ghana, some time back, we managed to do some 30%, but we then went down to just about 4 or 5%. Now we are probably struggling with about 6%, which is no good, 6 to 8%, which is no good enough for health. So you don't have enough money within health coming from the national budget to health. And similarly, even less amount is offered to mental health. So now we talk about just 1.4% of health budget going to mental health, as against the 6% that you're looking for.
Right.
So it's woefully inadequate. And that's why the Mental Health Act that was passed in 2012 stated categorically that we needed a mental health levy to support the government to provide adequate funding. But this levy has not been established.
Right.
So policymakers must show the political will to provide funding by, for instance, enacting the mental health levy so that we can get funding. On the part of policymakers, that's very crucial.
Right.
On the part of civil society, it's also very crucial. The media, for instance, how often do we get the media giving attention to mental health?
Right.
How often do we get the media giving a slot to mental health discussions?
Right.
Thank God we are discussing this issue, but often, if we approach the media for them to give us a slot, they will say we have to pay, even when they know we don't have money. So civil society, the media must give do its part. Civil society must also always be asking their politicians, their policymakers, their MPs, what are you doing to mental health care? What are you doing to this? If they keep asking them, the policymakers will know that mental health care is not an issue for the mental health workers alone, but it's a national issue. Then they will give attention to that. So civil society has this role by asking questions, demanding answers from policymakers, and policymakers also have a role in showing political will so that we will be moving forward. Now we are talking about decentralizing mental health care. We don't want mental health care to be limited to the currently existing 3 psychiatric hospitals alone. If you go to any health facility, you should be able to get mental health care. So the government, the president inaugurating that center, the University of Ghana Medical School for mental health care, was certainly a move in the right direction.
Right.
And we are happy that such a facility has been established. Now the government, the president goes on further to say that they are going to cover mental health under national health insurance, and that's an excellent move. In the absence of the mental health levy, we need a way by which mental health care will be supported. And the NHIS, National Health Insurance Levy or system, is a wonderful way of supporting healthcare so that when I'm well, I can contribute something.
Right.
And when I'm not well, you can use that to defray my expenses. And that is very, very good.
Right.
So all along, we didn't have insurance, national health insurance covering mental health. But I must say that was actually for a good reason in the beginning. But it turned out to be a disadvantage to us. The good reason in the sense that when national health insurance was established in 2004 thereabouts.
Right.
Before then, we had cash and carry. If
Yes.
you went to the hospital, you needed to take out of your pocket and pay, so out-of-pocket payment.
Right.
And we succeeded in arguing to the government that our people were not capable of paying out of pocket.
Right.
So government agreed and exempted mental health care from out-of-pocket payment. So you were enjoying more or less free insurance.
Right.
So when the insurance came in, then they said, you people are already covered free of charge. So continue to remain covered free of charge. So you'll not be covered under the insurance, because they also wanted to find a way of not breaking the insurance scheme.
Right.
So we were okay with that, because we were having the money from the government to pay our bills. So we were happy with that. But then with time, the money from the government was not coming, and yet we were not under insurance. So we were left between. And that is when it became necessary for us now to go back or to put ourselves under the insurance. So we are happy with it.
Right. Let me start from Dr. Toot. Professor Kwesi basically said that he's expecting more from government, civil society organization, and the media, mainly to make mental health an everyday topic. We shouldn't wait till it's Mental Health Awareness Month or something. What do you say to that? How can we influence policies to make mental health a more everyday topic?
So he talked about the Act 846, that's the Mental Health Act, that's 2012, and then linked it to the need for government to step up the financial compensation towards mental health. Also, the role of the media and then CSOs and other stakeholders, and for example, we at Zomujo Mental Health Foundation, we have to encourage open, honest conversations on mental health. Rightly so, we shouldn't wait till it's Mental Health Month to talk about mental health. You see, even in our schools, do our teachers know enough about mental health to even tell the students about mental health? How do we tackle issues we don't know about? So when the student is going through mental health challenges, does the student even get to know that I am going through a mental health challenge and I need help? So even at the grassroots level, I like that we look at things from the grassroots level. How do we, because at the end of the day, policies should affect persons at the local level or the grassroots level. How do we empower these individuals to actually talk about mental health? Because by doing that, we're able to break the stigma surrounding mental health, get people to actually seek help. Yes, so it has to start from there. So media stations and CSOs, NGOs.
Dr. Alberta, in 1 minute.
So for me, the policies can be made, but then the implementation of the policy is what matters.
Right.
You come to the workplace, we can have a policy on mental health. We want to have a psychologist on standby at work. We want to have a psychologist in the school to tend to the needs of students, to tend to the needs of workers. But if we just have this policy and there's no implementation ongoing, then there's no need for the policy in the first place. Also, we live in a society where we tend to trivialize people's concerns. Someone tells you, oh, I'm not feeling well, I feel I'm depressed. And the next person goes like, hey, Charlie, me too. And it's like, you too, you have to talk to the right people. And when someone speaks to you as well, you have to give the person a good solution if you can. If you can't, then you refer the person to a higher authority.
Right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on today's show. Now, on our social media platform, we have Eugene Pakwesi Adai saying insightful contribution by Dr. Ansong and Dr. Dut. Also, Joanne sent me a question on WhatsApp saying, Ethel, please, can you ask Dr. Albert, when it comes to the Alberta, when it comes to the triggers, are there any particular health issues that are peculiar to the youth?
Okay, so the triggers I mentioned were triggers from the home, from workplace, and from school. Peculiar to the youth, we have things like depression, anxiety. It can affect any age at all, but these are things that we find commonly amongst ourselves. So the depression, the anxiety, the use of substance and all is what is common to us.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Once again, thank you very much. I totally enjoyed this discussion. It was a fun discussion. 30 seconds. Dr. Toot, talk to me about Zomujo, even though you've mentioned it.
Yeah. So yes, Zomujo Mental Health Foundation, We are an NGO, not-for-profit, focused on mental health. 3 things: promoting mental health, improving access to care, and then policy advocacy. I've talked about AI-powered app where we're providing free, personalized, confidential mental health services, currently on hold, looking at proactive care. We've also been embarking on education and awareness and trying to get people to know more about mental health. And currently, we are having our peer counselor training program where we are taking peer counselors with lived expertise, people who have gone through all these challenges of mental health and want to contribute on volunteer, train them, have facilitators. So Prof. Angelo Foriata, for example, is one of our facilitators, and she's been very supportive.
Right.
And then we also thank the KGL Foundation, headed by Mr. Alex Dade. They've been helping us, supporting us together.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I will be expecting you to join me next week. Let's have another insightful conversation when it comes to how we can live well. My name is Ethel Poplampo. I'll see you next week.